Hey guys, this is Andrei, a certified translator and a real estate concierge. We're releasing another review of the week's headlines. Let's try and see what happened in our country and next door, where the war is being fought, and see where this is all taking us. Thank you very much for staying with the channel. I very much appreciate the help of the guys who donated recently. The donation platforms are under the video, as are my contacts, should you need something here on the ground or should you have any questions that are to be discussed directly. Thank you for staying with me, and let's see what happened. Since this clip is named after COVID, let's just briefly cover that COVID still happens here and there. There's some dozen dead and some less than 1,000 cases in a day. Basically nobody cares. Again, like you know from my previous releases, the streets are calm. Some people in the offices and agency wear masks, some not, and they're not really enforced anyhow. The official policy is not enforcing anything, neither vaccines nor masks, and none of it is coming in the short-term or long-term perspective. Of course, even analysts here cannot really judge long-term because that normally fails. Speaking of COVID for travel, it's also worth noting that the number of flights is still limited, but the visa-free via Turkey, now operated mostly by the local Belarus aircraft carrier, is still running. It's still an option. Otherwise, a flight via Dubai, via Georgia, or via Moscow. Moscow requires transit visa, most likely. Double check that. It's still possible. But flight via Russia does not grant one visa-free access to the country, which is granted to some 70 or more countries for 30 days, providing the citizens fly in and out of the airport. The land crossing of the land border, obviously the only choice here is western border. Only buses are running, trains are not running. It's possible if you're coming for studies, on business, and this is something where I could give you further consultancy, by the way, or to attend the funeral of a relative or something like that. Double check with the Russian version of the State Border Committee website. Its Russian version is the most up-to-date. The English one is not really keeping up. It's kind of easy to track what flights are still flying to Minsk National Airport from outside, and this outside is mostly from the east, of course, now that there are sanctions imposed. I'll put some screenshots over here for you to see what towns are still connected with Minsk, because I understand that some government websites, including the airport website, cannot be accessed in the west. A few recent rides on Yandex Taxi showed me that the drivers are quite disappointed. On top of traditionally low tariffs, you have to work 12-hour shifts to earn some average salary. For Minsk, it's about $500, or was basically. Now they say that the traffic is pretty much down, and even the cheap Yandex rides, which were really cheap, are not any popular anymore because people started to save money. So we are smoothly shifting to economic discussions. Let's catch up our breath and continue. As you probably know, Booking.com, Airbnb and some other international booking platforms have cut out Russia and Belarus for the sake of company out of their business, so any international traveler coming in will have to book in a traditional way. Obviously, as an ex-tour guide, I have some connections around the city of Minsk, landlords, groups and everything. And if you have any requests for a several days stay, message me. I'll try to find a place that will be to your liking and to your budget, unless you just directly ring up a hotel, but their rec rates aren't really very inviting. It appears economists say that we're having an oncoming default, and this may not be a too scary thing to state. We can just pay our debts with our own currency. The president of ours has released a decree that this is to be done towards the bad guys, the ones who impose sanctions on us, like the same move that Russia actually undertook recently. In light of the economic hardships that are pursuing the country, the IT guys started their exodus, and a pretty well-known startup called FLO that has to do with girls' health is out of the country. And the government is kind of trying to introduce some last-minute benefits to try and cheer up the remaining IT folks and try and motivate them to stay. Not sure if that's going to be any successful. As we may logically conclude after talking cash, the lack of the hard currency, so says the books for economics, but I didn't read too closely anyway. The lack of hard currency, this allows us to shop for stuff that we can't produce, obviously, and one of the industries it's going to hit after construction is pharmaceutical, because we have our own farms, we have our own medication produced, and although the minister declared we have a 6-month supply of whatever we have stocked up, well, we are not making iodine things, we're not making other things, and they're not going to come because of the factors that I listed in the previous video. So this and the cosmetics branch, which is pretty heavy, and some machinery which is not going to come. Take Belarus mining trucks, they are more than half made out of foreign ingredients that are not going to come. So this will have to be retailored, redone somehow, and before it gets done, I guess there's going to be a significant drop in all senses. Now a little bit more about the media news and media fakes and media jokes. Our president recently gave an interview to some Japanese journalists. One out of his several statements was that we don't have any journalists actually jailed in Belarus for performing their duty. An independent resource that went underground after the 2020 events, let's say, quoted that we still have some 20+ journalists jailed specifically for their job of work. One of the parliament members, following the madness that occurs in Russia, stated that we should step up the responsibility of the journalists for the fakes that they deliver, for the distortion of facts and everything. I believe they already introduced criminal punishment for calls upon sanctions that are to be imposed on Belarus. So guys, you know that this is a gossip and rumors program. My little clips have nothing to do with real state of affairs. That's just a work of my mind. And I explicitly say that I'm not a journalist and this is not a news release. We're just reading headlines together. It's not that scary, or maybe I'm too stupid, but let's see what happens out of these. Finance minister has declared that our incomes are dropping, so the current running year's budget will have to be retailored, and obviously they will, let's say, cut the non-essential expenses. In real life, that normally means that the salaries of doctors and teachers get cut, but of course they see and they know better. The life for salary people is not going to be fun, that's for sure. Last but not least, a little bit of politics. We have this constantly rumored Belarusian participation, the real man-on-the-ground participation in the war between Russia and Ukraine. And this is a bloody war, and this is something I feel very uneasy about as a Belarusian, as a local here, and as a tour guide for that matter. And the thing that makes me think more about it is the recent delay in the payment deadlines in our loans to Russia. They have just reached some agreement amidst constant requests from Belarus to get more and more financial help from Russia to the local economy. They have reached the agreement to delay the payments that were due this year by some 5 or 6 years, and I can only wonder what kind of favors the Russians are expecting in return from Belarus. The Ukrainian intelligence constantly quotes the preparation of the Belarusians to engage, and the Belarusian Ministry of Defense has just reported that the men from the border are back to their positions, stations, barracks, whatever. So this seems unlikely, but we'll see, and you may comment if you feel it's going to be happening. So guys, like many of you see, this is going to be a challenging year, although spring here is a bit on the warm side, sunny and all, brightens up things a little bit, but the headlines are definitely mired, and I'll try to observe as much as I can, as biased as I can, about how things are, and tell you the position, the perspective of a local man from here, from Minsk. Well, can't say how soon I'll see some of you in Minsk. I guess the travel plans will have to wait. Anyway, travel and shop responsibly. Thank you very much for watching, for your support, and I'll see you later. Cheers.